A few years ago, I used my bigger box joint jig with an accessory fence to build a fairly small box from walnut, mainly just to show off what the jig can do. And I still have it, but in this video, I want to try to build one that's even smaller. To make a small box, of course, you need to cut thin material, and I'm shooting for about 1/16 of an inch thick. And I'm using two types of wood to give me a little bit of contrast so that you'll be able to see the box joints better. Since these pieces are really small, I had to make a special push stick. And on the end of the push stick, I've got a piece of double-sided tape so that it will grip the wood. Now I'm using my mini table saw sled to cut the parts to length. And I have a video showing how I made that. There's a link in the description. I'm going to be using my smaller box joint jig for this. This is the one that I made from MDF about 3 years ago. And once again, I've made a special accessory fence for it, and I'll need that to hold the very small parts that I'm using. Most people don't want to build a box this small, so the jig is sized for more normal size things. I've got a stack of the 4 pieces that make up the sides of the box, and I've taped those together rather than trying to hold them in line. And then I can get that clamped in the accessory fence flush with the bottom. I've got a problem putting it back in the jig. Using 1/4-inch plywood for the backer turns out to be a mistake. It's too thin and it's bowing outwards, so I'm going to replace it with 1/2-inch plywood. That's a lot stiffer. I also added a small side fence to the backer, and this will help to make sure that I put the package in the right place when I flip it over. Now I can get the carriage put back in the jig, and as you can see, this time it actually fits. Now there's not much to see here while I'm cutting because the view is blocked by the holding jig, and the blade is not actually cutting out very much either. This is a very thin curved blade, and I'm running it through again just to make sure that it's completely cut. Nice thing about my jig here is that you can slide the carriage completely out to have a quick look to make sure that you've actually made the cuts and they're in the correct place. And this looks pretty good. Next, I need to flip the package over and cut the other side. And here's where that little side fence comes in. It positions the package exactly where it needs to be. Once again, with the cuts done, I can slide the carriage out and have a look. Then I took the masking tape off and see how the parts fit together. Very good, actually. To assemble it, I squeeze out some glue and I'm just dipping the ends in to put the joints together. And then when the glue was dry on the joints on the sides, I glued on the bottom, which was just one of the spare maple pieces that I cut. I let it fully dry and then I sanded it smooth. And that didn't take a lot of time. That's a definite advantage for a small project like this. There's not a whole lot of sanding. And I even made an interlocking lid for it from the other spare pieces. Last step, of course, is to give it some kind of finish, and I'm just using boiled linseed oil for this. Given the size, there's no need for a brush. I'm just using my fingertip to rub it in. And that is it. I don't know for certain if this is actually the smallest box joint box in the world, but it's definitely the smallest one that I'm going to make. Anyway, there are plans available for the jig that I used in this video, and there's a link to those in the description. You can use it to build normal size boxes, ones that are actually big enough to put something in. And if you want to build even bigger boxes, I have a jig for that as well. This is my ultimate box joint jig, and the link to these plans is also in the video description.
Oh, maybe it's because you didn't cut on the backstroke.